All right, you ready? What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Grindline Podcast. This is episode 54. I am your host, Greg, and I am here tonight with both Tyler and Ryan for a second time. This is insane. Ryan and Tyler, how you guys doing tonight?
Watching some fantastic playoff hockey and drinking a Coke. I'm good.
Yeah, that's it.
Watching some fantastic playoff hockey and just pretty much watching some great hockey. All these playoffs have been pretty good. So
Way to be
can't
original.
complain.
Are you and Ryan in the same room?
No. Why does it look like it?
No, you just said
No.
the exact same thing.
Okay, Greg.
It's an echo joke, Tyler.
A little bit off of them, but
All right, so we got a couple of things. Tonight's show is going to be very interesting. So we got a couple of things to talk about, but first what I want to start with is Joe Veleno, who today received a 3-year entry-level contract. Right now he is playing for Drummondville. Or did they wrap up? Are they still playing?
They are out of the playoffs.
Okay, so they've been eliminated. But he wrapped his season in 59 games. He had 42 goals and 62 assists for 104 points. That is up from his previous year of 64 games between St. John and Drummondville, where he had 79 points. So his totals went pretty far up, I would say. Now we all have to, temper our expectations because we know what happened with Anthony Mantha, where he's had like a 120-point season in the Q. The Q is not known as a very defensive league, so it's a pretty good scoring. But from what I've seen in Veleno playing in preseason games and the prospect tournament and development camp, I think he would have been ready to go last season had there not been a huge log jam. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on getting Veleno's entry-level contract done, and we'll start with you, Ryan.
No, it's great. I think everyone was kind of hopeful that, for one, the Griffins were going to continue on in the Calder Cup playoffs. They unfortunately lost the other night in 5 games, but it gives Veleno now, he's on that ELC. He already was what many of us felt pretty damn close to cracking that roster last year. And to your point, that logjam, which is still pretty much there, prevented him from doing so. But what's nice that coming into this season with this ELC is that even if he doesn't start with the Wings at the beginning of the year, he can still go to the AHL and not have to get worried about getting sent down. So I think overall, no matter what way you look at it, him being on that first deal is going to be awesome, and he'll definitely be in Detroit sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think what really helped him was that exceptional status. Got his early CHL years out of the way early, so that he could join the AHL faster than what a normal rookie would. Tyler, what do you think about Veleno's entry level, and what do you think? What do you see him doing?
Well, I think it's like I posted on Twitter today. The era for Joe Veleno in Detroit is starting today, because I think next year there's pretty much no question, unless he has a terrible training camp or a terrible summer or injury possibilities. I really don't see him not making the team. I think he's done everything that he's needed to do in the Q. And I don't know if he really does need to go to the AHL. So I think you might see him in Detroit next year at some point. It may not be right away, but at some point you're going to see him in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm hoping he follows kind of the same development path as Larkin. Maybe they'll start him at the wing for a year, let him get adjusted, and then move him into center. If he can develop on the same path as Larkin and reach kind of the same plateaus, I think like the early draft predictions last year thought he would. I mean, he was at one point a top 10 pick last season. So I think if he can project into that Larkin type role, you've easily got a 1C and a 2C in Larkin and Veleno, and that's kind of what you really need in the league now is 2 pretty high level centers, and then you can taper off into your garbage and even worse garbage on the third and fourth line. I guess that we have a Nielsen now and Helm or Glendening or whoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll be fine. I'm not too overly concerned if he has kind of a rough go. I don't think there's really much against him in the fact of who's going to be better than him out there. And he already started to show that. I mean, granted, it was a prospect tournament, but he was probably one of the best players out there for the prospect tournament last year. And then just the way he performed in the preseason against NHL caliber guys, if he has anything remotely close to that this coming season, he's cracking the top 6, if not top 9.
Yeah, I pretty easily too. I mean, this isn't a lineup that's going to be hard to get the second center position, really. I mean, right now it's held by Athanasiou, who, for the life of me, I cannot figure out why he's still playing center and why Blashill likes him at center so much. So I think Veleno could force Athanasiou back to the wing and center the second line with him and Zadina pretty easily next season. But
it'll give him good flexibility. That's for damn sure. If they shifted AA back.
Yeah, if nothing else, Veleno would be the first call up if there was an injury, no doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I think Veleno is going to give you more production than Rasmussen did this year.
Well, he's not going to get buried on the fourth line.
Yeah.
Well, we hope not.
Well, I think the thing with that is Rasmussen's position is supposed to be center, but as a bunch of people have pointed out, his skating is he's not fast enough to be a center.
Yeah.
He can't back check fast enough because he's too big.
I wonder if he'll ever get there, though, like Sean Couturier did. For a while, Couturier was playing wing because he wasn't good enough or fast enough to play center. He worked on that a few years. Now he's not a second line center per se, but he's actually pretty good. It's a shutdown guy.
Well,
so
if you remember, Rasmussen couldn't really work out to his full capacity last offseason because of his injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think it's been 2 off seasons like that now where he hasn't really been able to work out as hard as he probably could. So I think one really good off-season workout and then just come into camp ready to go for Rasmussen. But I still say park him in front of the net like a Holmstrom and let him tip pucks in and wreak havoc on the goalie and block sight lanes. That's what he's going to be really good at, I think.
Yeah,
no, that's what a lot of people expected Mantha to be, but he's just not that type of player. You know, he's more of a sniper, he's more of a shooter, that kind of guy. He's not really the guy that's going to stand in front of the net and be, like Holmstrom was at one point, or like Franzen could be at times.
Yeah, Raz showed that he liked it in front of the net, and he had some pretty goals this year, and some just good plays in general, even if they weren't going in the net. Oh. But is he? I know we talked about it. Is he living with Larkin this summer, or is he living in the metro area?
He did last season. Last season he was all with Larkin. I haven't seen anything about his arrangements for the summer, but I would assume that you'd probably want to stay in the area for training because that's where your staff is. That's where the facility is. I mean, they built one of the best training facilities in the entire country at Little Caesars Arena. Yeah, exactly. It's got cryotherapy and all this other stuff. So I don't understand why you would. I can understand why you might want to move back to home to see family and stuff like that. But I would probably spend a bulk of my time in Detroit training with the staff and the team at the best arena in the country. So
I feel like him and Chalowski should just be gym buddies, be the bros this year.
Chalowski was working out in Detroit last offseason too.
Mm-hmm. Max had a really good article about that with the off-season program that Chalowski had going on. I think he was up in Plymouth for most of it.
It feels like to me that this young core of Red Wings are starting to take a little bit of a shape with, you obviously have Larkin and Mantha and Athanasiou. They're their own class, but then you have the Chalowskis, you have the Velenos, you have the Rasmussens, now the Zadinas coming, or I guess the Velenos and the Zadinas coming. And it's starting to take shape. I don't know what it's going to be in a few years, but it's starting to take shape, and that's a good thing to see, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of starting to take shape,
oh God,
this is where we're going to get into the bulk of our podcast tonight because I'm not kidding when I said I literally, like today, Facebook, hockey Twitter became hockey Facebook. In the fact that the report came out, and I'm sure everyone has seen it by now, that Datsyuk is not going back to CSKA Moscow. His KHL team.
SKA St. Petersburg.
Yeah, he's not going back to St. Petersburg. Okay. So that led people to think, oh, you know what? He's definitely coming back to the Red Wings, in which no one ever said anything about. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight, and why the fact that that is literally the worst idea ever. And it's not
Beautiful.
I think what I want to do is I want to start with what the lineup is probably going to look like next season, and then you can tell me, Tyler, because Tyler is on the opposite side of the fence of me and Ryan, where Datsyuk fits into this. So next season, you're looking at your top line of Mantha, Larkin, Bertuzzi. Your second line is hopefully something to the effect of Athanasiou, Veleno, Zadina. Your third line looks like Rasmussen, Nielsen, Hirose. Your fourth line looks like Abdelkader, Helm, Glendening, and your extra forward is Christopher N. Your defense, which it doesn't matter for the Datsyuk situation, but your defense is DeKaiser, Hronek, Cholowski, Green, Bowie, Daly, and Erickson as the extra D. So there's no room on this roster if you want to keep developing that chemistry. There's no room on this roster if you want to play rookies. And there's no room on this roster if you are indeed rebuilding and moving forward with this team. But by all means, Tyler, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a few angles you can look at this. There's that angle, which I mean I can see. You know, you're developing something. Why break it up? Here's the other thing. You're losing Vanek, who is a good leader in the locker room, unless, you know, they end up re-signing him, because who knows. Abdelkader's not a great leader. Nielsen, we'll see how good of a leader he really is. And then, you know, you have Kronwall, who we still don't even really know if he's coming back or not. So if Kronwall doesn't come back, and, you know, who knows what's going to happen trade-wise, and, you know, because Yzerman's going to want to put his own print on this at some point. I don't know if it's going to be right away. I don't know if it's going to be at the draft or free agency or what have you. But Pavel Datsyuk coming back, if anything, I don't know if he's going to give you anything offensively, but I know he's going to give you someone to look up to and lead by example. And that's where you put a guy like Datsyuk on the third line. And yes, you keep Athanasiou on the second line center, and maybe Veleno's not ready to play in the NHL just yet. The players can learn from Pavel Datsyuk, and that's the biggest thing. Now, obviously, leadership is so important when grooming a team, and leadership is something, you know, that's important, even if it's just for 1 year. Datsyuk coming back and playing on the third line center for 1 year, and being on the second power play unit, or maybe not even being on the second power play unit. Maybe they just use him as a third line center, and maybe even a penalty killer here and there. That would be great for the Red Wings, just because Datsyuk's been there. He's done that. He knows what it takes to win. The NHL, sure, it's changed just a little bit, but attention to detail has never changed. And that's one thing that Datsyuk and Zetterberg always brought to the table: attention to detail, and hard work. And that's one thing that Datsyuk and Zetterberg both brought to the table: hard work. And even in the gym, that's another thing. You know, these players and these kids think they know everything. Now, obviously, they have some guidance with Kronwall and these guys, but Datsyuk could be a good addition to the locker room.
Okay.
And, the other thing is, I don't mean to cut you off, Greg. The other thing is, Datsyuk coming back, the only way that I even entertain it is if it's not a high salary at all, like maybe $1 million.
Well,
you know, whatever the minimum is.
Did you see what Helene St. James said today?
No.
She said if he came back, it would probably be in the area of 1 year, $4 million.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm out.
She said
I'm
3.5 to 4 million.
Yeah, I'm out.
Because he was making 4 million in Russia.
Yeah, I'm out. If that's the case.
So the thing about that is, and I talked to Darren Elliott last season, and he said the whole leadership in the locker room and on ice example thing is extremely overblown. He says that the players know what they're doing. They get out there and they do their job, and they've been trained to do that job. If you look at people like Larkin, will be in his 5th year. It's Larkin's team. Datsyuk coming back would completely distract from that. If you look at Green's been in the league forever. He's a vet.
That's true, Mike Green.
DeKaiser's been in the league for a while. Daly has been in the league forever. He's a vet.
Glendening, Helm.
Glendening and Helm have been in for a long time. And you can say, oh, God, but like it's the same situation. They've played with Datsuk. And my thing is if you want to bring Datsuk back so bad, why not bring him back as a skills coach? Why does he have to be on the ice? To me, if you want a huge distraction, and I get people want to put butts in seats and people want to sell tickets, I think signing Yzerman as a general manager more than does that.
Yep.
I don't think you need Datsuk to do that. Right now, and you can see even how just the mention of his name has distracted everybody. You want to distract people from Larkin becoming the face of the team, put Datsuk on the ice. You want to distract people from rookies, put Datsuk on the ice. You want to take a spot from someone so that maybe if Veleno's good enough to play, you sign Datsuk, he can't play. He's getting pushed off another year. I cannot see a positive to bringing him back as a player. I can see a ton of positives of bringing him back as a development coach, to bringing him back as a skills guy, to bringing him back as a scout, to having him around the locker room. But I cannot see a benefit to bringing him back as a player. In his last season with SKA St. Petersburg, in 54 games played, he had 42 points, 12 goals, 30 assists. So his last season with Detroit, he played 66 games, had 16 goals and 33 assists. If he cannot manage those numbers right now in the KHL, I think his ceiling in the NHL, if he were to come back, would be like 30 points. I don't see, especially if you're putting him on our third line. You're putting him with Rasmussen and Hirose, okay. But I mean, even if you try and move what they would do is get the bright idea that he played with Abdelkader before, so they would put Abdelkader on his line, and it'd be garbage production.
Well, it's another top 5 pick,
but we'll get that anyways. That's the thing is, if you're
you
playing,
don't need Datsuk to suck.
Exactly, we suck without him. We'd suck with him. It just Zadina's not going to come right into the NHL and put up 60 points. I mean,
I'll tell you one thing, Greg. If Pavel Datsuk wants to play, and he comes and tells Steve Yzerman and Chris Ilitch that he wants to play, he's going to play, and it's going to be with the Red Wings, and it's going to be for whatever. Hopefully not $4 million. That would be a little absurd. Actually, a lot absurd. But if he comes back and gets a veteran minimum and he really wants to play, he's going to play. He's a face. He's not a face of the franchise, but he's an icon in the city of Detroit. He's an icon with the Red Wings, and that's just the way it goes.
So I don't think Yzerman would allow it, and the reason that I say that is he preached patience his entire interview, and he also said that he's not going to come in and make some big splashy signing just to make us a little bit better next season. And
does this make us even a little bit better, though?
That's what everyone's arguing. Is that people are saying he'd still put up, he was a point per game in Russia. He'll put up at least 50, 55 points, which is highly doubtful.
And personally, I'd love to just see him back.
I'd love to see him back, but not as a player, honestly. And the reason he went to Russia was to be with his family. His family's not over here.
No, they're just coming here on vacation. That's the only thing that is actually taking place.
But Ryan, I want to hear your thoughts about the whole Datsuk conundrum.
Growing up a Wings fan, I've been spoiled with my first true love was Stevie Y. You look at the roster that was built, and it was built for him. Also at that time, as the caveat, little asterisk, if you will, is the fact that the salary cap wasn't a thing. So they were able to put guys like, say, let's look at 0-2, Brett Hull, Dominik Hasek, Luc Robitaille, Sergei Fedorov, Brendan Shanahan, Larry Murphy, Nick Lidstrom, Brian Rafalski, all these types of players around him. And it was great. You didn't care who the young buck was in charge because they had their buck in charge, and that was Steve Yzerman. Datsuk came around. He was on the 0-2 roster. He was on the 2 kids in a goat line with Hull and Boyd Devereaux, I think it was. And it was fantastic. Yes. Datsuk spent all these years here, did everything he had to do, and that's all he had to do. The torch has been passed. There is, if you look at Holland's focus, he wants those couple guys that have that veteran presence in the locker room or on the team or whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, are these guys producing? Vanek, you can say yes, he has. You look at his other signings though. Nielsen, it's a wash, in my opinion. Abdelkader has had one good season and got rewarded for it, just like Jonathan Erickson. What true benefit to me does bringing in what will be a 41-year-old Pavel Datsyuk making it apparently $4.5 million for one season? What does that do overall for the team?
At 4.5, nothing. At 1, I can swallow it.
If it's 1, I can see it. But at the same time, there's no room.
Of course there is.
You
Veleno
can't.
just doesn't make the team.
So
But
you'd
why
rather sacrifice
punish-
a player that should likely be in the NHL for a
Because
guy that is injury prone at 41? He probably would still have the best hands in the league. I'm not going to question any of that. But so you get him, he goes down hurt. So then you can bring in Veleno because somebody got hurt because there's no room, or even if that could possibly end up taking Zadina or Svechnikov's spot.
well,
because of this whole thing.
Veleno didn't get to play in the AHL, or didn't get to play in the AHL in this cup run because he was doing his own cup run in the QMJHL. Larkin, when he came up, we said we wanted to keep him as the kind of similar situation to Larkin. So Larkin played in the AHL playoffs, in the Calder Cup playoffs.
Oh yeah.
And then the next spring, the next fall, he ended up making the team out of training camp. So Veleno possibly could end up doing the same thing, playing in the AHL and then eventually making the NHL roster, whether that be in October or November, or who knows what's going to happen with the lockout situation or the CBA situation. Hopefully nothing, but that's the thing.
But if he's good enough, the thing is, if he's good enough, why block him with another vet after this entire time we're screaming, get rid of vets? We're screaming, let the old guys' contracts drop off. He's going to be 41 years old. Sure, you don't lose your hockey IQ, but you sure as hell lose your knees and your back.
We can bring Fedorov back, too.
No. That's the other thing. Like people saying, "Oh, bring Fedorov back into the front office." Fedorov basically got fired by his KHL team for mismanagement as the general manager. They've basically fired him as the general manager and then removed the general manager position from that team completely.
What team was he in charge of?
Oh God, I can't remember now.
He was in charge of CSKA Moscow, I think.
But it's so they don't have a GM anymore because that position's gone, and he just sits on an advisory board. So, I mean, I don't like bringing in former players for warm, fuzzy feelings and nostalgia.
No. What I think they should do, and this is all kidding aside, I think they should retire the number 91.
Oh yeah, well everyone does. It's an Illich grudge that hasn't gone away. But
I think that'll change a little bit, but that's a completely different subject.
Yeah.
But I think. Go ahead, Ryan.
No, I mean, if we were a team, if this Red Wings team was like, maybe in the playoffs right now, and there's a couple expiring contracts, and they had still an established core from when Datsyuk originally left, I would 100% say, fuck it, let's do it. However, bringing in Datsyuk doesn't make this. He'll make players better. That's the type of player that he is and the type of person he is. When he's on the ice, ever since he started back in 2002 with the two kids in a goat line, he made the guys that he played with better. He will always be that player. But at what cost now does that need to happen? You can't just go buying out these guys. That everyone, Helene fed the masses of that the Wings should waive Abdelkader to clear that space out. But even still, there's too many guys that are knocking on the door ready to cross that threshold to be an everyday NHL player that it doesn't, to me, the benefit doesn't make it truly worth it.
No, and even at the point that I'm at with the lineup for next season, if Veleno doesn't make it, if Veleno makes it, you're already pushing out Christopher N. He's already going back to Grand Rapids.
Mm-hmm.
So if Veleno doesn't make it, you need a spot in your lineup for Christopher N because he's been that fourth line grinder. I mean, another person I left out is Jacob De La Rose. He's not in my lineup either. They would either have to waive him or trade him, or send him to Grand Rapids. I mean, it's a packed roster already. Throwing in a 41-year-old vet does not help. It doesn't help the team move forward in the rebuild. It doesn't help the kids get chemistry with each other to try and improve over the previous season. It throws another distraction in there that I think is completely unnecessary going forward. And I think Yzerman is smart enough to know that. But I mean, I'm going to trust Stevie for whatever he wants to do. I just think it's the completely wrong choice.
Well, if he does it, he does it. It better not be at $4 million. That would be like absurd. Him coming back for $4 million. He's not even close to the player he was when he left. What was it, 2 years ago now? 3 years ago?
He was
now?
making what, 7.5 when he left?
Yeah, he was making $7.5 million, which was good. They ended up trading that to the contract to Arizona.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, it's like he's not even close to the player he was. So if he comes back and it's more than 1.5 million, it's too much. It's way too much.
And I don't think he would take. I mean, he can go home to his hometown team and make more than 1.5 million. I guarantee you, they give him at least 3.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how many buyouts
would you sign him?
Does the team actually have left? Are they restricted to 3, or they have just whatever they can afford?
Oh God. Hold on.
I think you're restricted to 3.
I thought it was 2.
Well, they've already got 2 on the books. 2. Or is it they can have 3 at any particular time? I'm trying to read Cap Friendly, but it's not making that much sense to me right now. I'm also not reading it very well. I was just curious because there's been a lot of people throwing out, well, why don't you just go buy out this person?
No. So buyouts are not worth it unless the player has 2 or fewer years left on his contract. If you were to buy out someone like Nielsen, you're paying 3/4 of that salary for like 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
If you buy out Applicator, you're paying it for 6 years. It's not at all worth it.
So
and people say, well, the cap goes up every year, but that's still money that's eaten because when the cap goes up, salaries also go up. That's why the cap goes up.
So if they were to buy out Erickson, I guess it doesn't really make sense. There's only 1 year left on his contract. So
they'd pay him for 2 more years at an entry-level type deal. Well, actually, I take that back. Yeah, Erickson would be like 1.4 mil to buy out for 2 more years, and then Daly is like 770,000 or some shit.
Yeah, it's just not even worth it at that point. Just let the guys play. Daly could retire too. That's another thing.
I don't think he will. I actually think if you're trying to trade a defenseman, Daly is the only one that could be traded because of his playoff experience and his runs with Pittsburgh. And actually, I think a team like Pittsburgh might want to pick him back up.
Wasn't there some speculation on that last year too?
There's speculation all over. I'm trying to tune a lot of it out because Colfin is one of the ones that has fanned the Datsuk Flames, which pissed me off today.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to listen to it unless I get it from an official source like someone from TSN, I guess now.
Bob McKenzie said he doubts that it would happen, actually.
Yeah, Bob says he's most likely going to go. Bob says Datsuk will most likely go play for his hometown team, which I guess, I mean, that's the way I'm taking it too, because that's what he said he's always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
What's his hometown team?
Oh, God. You're going to make me pronounce this?
Is it the Tractor or whatever?
Wait, Tractor?
There is a team called Tractor.
I don't think it's
Tractor.
It's Avtomobilist Yekaterinburg.
So that's the automobilist or whatever.
Yeah, Avtomobilist Yekaterinburg.
So basically, it's
almost as hard as Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
Yeah, well, let's not bring that up. It's summertime now. Enough of that.
They're both golfing.
Yep. All right.
But I do think Datsuk goes home. I don't see any reason for him not to. I can see maybe them sign if he's not going to go home. I can see him retiring, signing a 1-day contract with the Red Wings just so he can retire a Red Wing and not a fucking Phoenix Coyote or Arizona Coyote.
He can't do that until July 1st.
Yeah, exactly. But they would just
He
carry
can't
him on the
sign
roster.
until July 1st, anyways.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would just carry him for
That's-
a 1-day contract or whatever.
That's what I meant, because the Coyotes hold his rights up until that point.
Yep. So that's my rant. I think that's our podcast. Actually, I don't really have. I threw shit out the window because everyone pissed me off today. So we just went with we're gonna rant about Datsuk. So
Sure.
Tyler's in camp, bring him back for $1 million, and me and Ryan are in camp, don't bring him back at all. It's a distraction.
Some people are in the camp of bring him back for what Ryan said, 4.5.
Some people are
That's-
in
Why
the
would-
camp
why
of
would
bring
you-
him back no matter what.
I don't get why you would be okay with paying. I mean, $2 million is the max that I would be comfortable with, but even still, unless moves are made to clear up additional space on that roster, it just doesn't. It won't make sense to me.
No, and that's why I said that hockey Twitter became hockey Facebook today, because everyone put on their Homer hats and said, "Yep, bring him back," because it's a name they recognize and it makes them warm and fuzzy feelings inside, and makes them think of better days. But then when the games start and he's out for 20 games and they're still shit, they'll start screaming at their TV again, because he's not going to improve the team.
No,
That's the thing.
he'll be fun to watch, yes, but is it gonna be? He can't play 20 minutes a night.
No, and we still had a semi-healthy Henrik Zetterberg, and the team still sucked.
Yeah.
So a not
That
very
played every
healthy,
single game.
exactly, a not very healthy Pavel Datsuk is not going to help. It's not going to help. It may be fun to look at, and he might have some fun deeks and stuff like that, but you're going to finish again bottom 5 in the league and ask yourself why you even bothered doing it. Why'd you
Well-
bother setting the rebuild back?
Well, I don't think you're setting it back, really. I mean, I
Depending
guess
on who's ready to
given-
play.
Yeah,
Yes.
it depends on who's ready to play. And the other thing is too, like, I know this is selfish in a way, but seeing Datsuk play and dangle and seeing those videos and stuff, that would be awesome. Just for one season, even if it's just a 1 season thing, and then he retires at the end of it, just to see him play one more time, in the new arena because he's never played there and stuff like that. That would be cool. I mean,
Tyler, I'm going to do this for you real quick. If you go to your browser and you type in youtube.com and you search Pavel Datsuk highlights, you can watch him dangle all day.
yeah, I know. I'd like to watch it live one more time, kind of like I did in the Olympics this past 2 winters ago.
Is he playing in the Worlds?
I don't
No.
think so.
No, I don't think so.
I was just
I
curious.
think that-
I haven't seen the Russian roster. I know that they named the captains the other day, which their captains are quite solid.
Who's their captain?
Yeah, I think
Malkin.
Malkin's the captain.
Kucherov?
Ovi, Kuch. I think is it Kuch? Ovi, and there was one that was straight from the KHL.
Yeah.
But
I think
Well, they have some good players over there. Not like it used to be, but they have some good players over there.
I mean, sure. I think a lot of them leave to come
Yes,
here,
of course.
but yeah, I don't know who is on the roster this year for Team Russia.
It's not
Um,
Datsuk.
No,
Backstrom and Burakovsky are not gonna play. Oh wait, that's Sweden. That's not Russia. The hell am I looking at?
yeah. I
I
was
thought
like,
it was.
what are you
oh.
talking about?
I thought it was a Russian article. I was like, wait a minute, but it was Russian Machine from the Washington Capitals people.
That's
Oh,
their name. That's their SB Nation name, the Russian Machine.
Oh, here we go.
Is Ovi playing?
Kovalchuk. That's the other one I couldn't think of.
Kobe?
Yeah, Ilya Kovalchuk has joined the Russian national team.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think I found the roster. Russia's in
Russia.
Group B. You've got. Oh, there's no data available, so no, they have not announced the entire roster yet.
No.
It just says that in addition to Kovalchuk, invitations to join Russia's camp have been extended to Kucherov, Vasilevsky, and Malkin.
See what happens. But I think we're gonna
They
wrap
just
up.
announced the captains, though. That's gonna bug me.
I think we're gonna wrap
Malkin
up.
probably or Ovechkin.
Malkin's a huge bitch for his post-game comments at the end of the playoffs, but I think we're gonna wrap up tonight. Let's get your final thoughts. We'll start with you, Tyler.
Pavel Datsyuk coming back to Detroit, that would be pretty awesome. But Greg disagrees. We'll agree to disagree and move on. You can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
Ryan.
So if Datsyuk comes back, that's the right choice. If he does come back, it fucking is what it is. Also, as my last thought, Brad Marchand should have been suspended. He'll never fucking change my mind. He's a piece of shit.
Yep. He is a piece of shit.
Twitter handle is already Ryan33.
My final thoughts are, I guess we're gonna go with trust in Yzerman. In Yzerman, we trust.
Yzer plan.
Yeah.
The Yzer plan, baby.
Trust the Yzer plan. Trust the process.
Don't say that.
Don't
said you say that.
He said
Trust
it.
the process.
God damn it.
So I think if he comes back, I just think you're not stunting the rebuild, but you're not doing anything really to move it forward.
So that doesn't move the needle for you, Greg?
No, not at all. Don't move the needle. Needle does not move. But those are my final thoughts. I'm glad that Joe Veleno signed his entry-level contract, and I hope he can tear it up in development camp and earn a spot on the roster. You can follow me online at Bringing the Wing. You can follow the Grindline Podcast online at Grindline Pod. We are running a contest currently, so if you go to our page and you find that post, if you like it, retweet it, and make sure you're following us, you have a chance to win one of the shirts we posted from our merch shop. Speaking of merch shop, we have one. If you go to redbubble.com and search The Grind Line, you will find our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and mugs and travel cups and a bunch of fun stuff. Again, you can find our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean, TuneIn, soontoBeradio.com, Stitcher, wherever you're currently listening to it. That's where it's at. But for Ryan and Tyler, I am Greg. You stay classy, Hockeytown.